But this I pray, that thou consent to marry us today.
Holy St. Francis, what a change is here. Is Rosaline, whom thou didst love so dear, so soon forsaken? Young men's love then lies not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes. Jesu Maria, what a deal of brine hath washed thy sallow cheeks for Rosaline, and thou art changed? Pronounce this sentence then. Women may fall when there's no strength in men.
Thou chidst me oft for loving Rosaline.
For doting, not for loving, pupil mine.
And badst me bury love.
Not in a grave, to lay one in, another out to have.
I pray thee, chide not. She whom I love now doth grace for grace and love for love allow. The other did not so.
In one respect I'll thy assistant be, for this alliance may so happy prove, to turn your household's rancor to pure love.
I did my Romeo and Juliet project on Act 2, Scene 3, line 65 through 81. Before my scene, Romeo had just set his eyes on Juliet, and they both fell in love. So now, Romeo has come to ask Friar Lawrence to marry them, because they are just so in love. So, in my scene, Friar Lawrence tells his opinion and chats to Romeo about rethinking his decision on marriage. But he eventually agrees to marry them. This is my dramatic reading. Holy Saint Francis, what a change is here! Is Rosaline, that thou didst love so dear, so soon forsaken? Young men's love then lies, not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes. Jesu Maria, what a deal of brine hath washed thy sallow cheeks for Rosaline? How much salt water thrown away in waste, to season love that of it doth not taste? The sun not yet thy sighs from heaven clears, thy old groans yet ringing in mine ancient ears. Lo here, upon thy cheek, the stain doth sit, of an old tear that is not washed off yet. If e'er thou wast thyself, and these woes thine, thou and these woes were all for Rosaline. And art thou changed? Pronounce the sentence then. Women may fall when there's no strength in men. This passage is basically about how the friar is so surprised because Romeo has quickly changed from loving Rosaline to loving Juliet. When Friar Lawrence says, Holy Saint Francis, what a change is here! Is Rosaline that thou didst love so dear, so soon forsaken? He is asking Romeo if Rosaline, the one who is so in love with, is already forgotten. Shakespeare used an apostrophe and consonants here to show the friar's extreme surprise, because those literary devices are used to show heightened emotion. Consonance is also used when something that he is saying is really important. The reason why this line is important is because this is the first time the friar is hearing about Juliet, and the fact that Romeo asks the friar to marry them is really fast. So this is his reaction, and his question here sums up his whole conversation with Romeo. The tone here is a little bit contemplative and startled, because he was so surprised about what Romeo had just told him. In the next line, when Friar Lawrence says, Young men's love then lies, not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes, he is saying almost to himself that young men, specifically Romeo, love with their eyes and not their hearts. So this indicates that Romeo loves Juliet now because he saw that Juliet was more beautiful than Rosaline, so he quickly fell in love with her. which is exactly what happened. There are many couplets here in this whole passage which suggest that Friar Lawrence is having a conversation and is not angry with Romeo. He just wants to talk to him, and it's about his huge decision about marriage. In the next two lines, when Friar Lawrence says, Jesu Maria, what a deal of brine hath washed thy sallow cheeks for Rosaline? How much salt water thrown away in waste, to season love that of it doth not taste? He is saying that Romeo cried so much over Rosaline, and how many tears did he waste for love that wasn't real? How does Romeo know that this love now is real? First, in this passage, there is another apostrophe indicating heightened emotion. This emotion is not anger, as shown by the couplet, but is more calm and a bit annoyed, because the friar thought Romeo loved Rosaline so much and was crying over her. But now he is happy after one day because he saw an even more beautiful girl and lost all feelings for Rosaline. Following this, Friar Lawrence says, The sun not yet thy sighs from heaven clears, thy old groans yet ringing in mine ancient ears. First of all, the sentence structure is a little weird. The sentence, the sun not yet thy sighs from heaven clears, is weird because the words are mixed up. Thy doesn't seem to be needed in the sentence, and should be somewhere else. In the next sentence, there is imagery because the friar is recalling Romeo's despair over Rosaline, and he describes his groans and ears into more detail. Thereafter, friar says, Lo here, upon thy cheek, the stain doth sit, of an old tear that is not washed off yet. What he means by the sentence is just that he is pointing out that he can still see the stain on Romeo's cheek from an old tear that hasn't been washed off yet. Shakespeare used personification to describe the stain on Romeo's cheek as sitting on the cheek. Personification usually means, in works of Shakespeare, that something is important, so the fact that the friar thinks that Romeo still has feelings for Rosaline is new. Everyone in the play, up to this point, says that Romeo needs to get over Rosaline. He needs to meet someone new and move on, and when he does, they are excited, but Friar Lawrence knows how this is going to end. He knows, and he is warning Romeo to go slower. He explains this in the next portion of this monologue. He says, If e'er thou wast thyself, and these woes thine, thou and these woes were all for Rosaline. This is very important because there is consonance, and as I said before, it suggests that something is significant or critical to the passage. He says that if you were ever yourself and this sadness was yours, you and your sadness were for Rosaline. This basically means that Friar Lawrence is saying that Romeo was never in love with Rosaline in the first place. He wasn't in love and the sadness wasn't real. Now, because of this consonance, the next sentence is very important. Friar Lawrence says, And art thou changed? Pronounce this sentence then. Women may fall when there is no strength in men. The friar says this because he is referring to how Rosaline rejected Romeo. She never loved him, which is why he was depressed. But the friar says that Romeo is not changed. He does not really know love from a crush, so Friar Lawrence wants him to say that if he is changed, he should be able to say that you can't expect a woman to be faithful when men are so unreliable, which refers to how Romeo has so quickly forgotten Rosaline, so why should he have expected her to love him back? And here there's a couplet again, and it just means that he's still having a conversation. There's no really heightened emotion or he's not angry with Romeo. Overall, Shakespeare uses these literary devices to explain to the readers that something is very important, or hints on how to say it because of the mood, or the amount of commas and punctuation there. We, as readers, learn the character by what he or she says, and how others talk to them in the play. Friar Lawrence is like a father figure to Romeo because he's the only one who Romeo told about the marriage. So, the friar is always giving Romeo advice. He seems to be the wise one in the play. This is my personal response. I realize that this scene is very important because this is the first time anyone has ever doubted the decision of marriage. The nurse was ecstatic, and she was the only other person who knew about the marriage. And it makes me think that sometimes people are very quick in their decisions and don't realize their mistake until a problem is forming. It also made me think that people should think before they act. I didn't realize that this is a very important scene until I analyzed it. This scene is very effective, and I finally realized why Shakespeare's works are so famous. The language is amazing. There's a huge hidden meaning behind each line, and you don't realize it until you spend a lot of time on it, which is what happened. I'm beginning to actually know what Shakespeare is trying to say, and it makes me more interested in the language and the play. Analyzing the scene has affected me greatly because I finally understand what is going on and why.